You have to remember, Amnesty, we at times can challenge governments, we can challenge large corporates, and so a not-for-profit that, so through physical action of producing a report can be at risk of virtual threat through the cyberspace. Clearly, when you're producing reports that may not be favourable in certain corners, you have to understand that there may be backlash as well. But we exist because we have to challenge the status quo. We have to challenge
Yeah.
what goes on in the world. And so, as an organisation, that means you have to be quite resilient yourself too. Everything from your people to your processes to your technology. So whether it results in a personal attack to individuals of the organisation, whether it results in increased cyber risk to the
Oh,
organisation
yeah.
as a result.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember, Amnesty, we at times can challenge governments, we can challenge large corporates, and so a not-for-profit that through a virtual act, through physical action of producing a report can be at risk of virtual threat through the cyberspace.
Yeah.
So you could talk about state-level actors here, and we're not-for-profit. So you have to be on your guard, and
Absolutely.
it's very vast, and the landscape takes a bit of managing, but that's what we do, and that's how we've existed for the last 60 years, and that's what we continue to do.
Yeah, sure. Can I just dig into that a little bit, the cyber
Sure.
threat? Because I know there may be, and I appreciate it, there's stuff you may not be able to elaborate on, but I think, have you been subject of, cyber attacks then by states? Because of, has anyone got a bone to pick with Amnesty then?
Absolutely. I mean, the risk is always there, but I'd say it's probably more increased now. I mean, we have very good partners, very good controls and measures in place. Of course, we do. But at the end of the day, we're government level. In terms of what we're talking to as well. I mean, and the threat is various. It could be anything from denial of service right the way through to shutting down the Amnesty website in a certain country so that country's population can't access it.
Yeah.
And we have to think about how we react to that and what we do. So, yeah, I mean, every organisation is subject to cyber threat, I'm sure, but we have to particularly be on our guard, and we've got a good group of people to focus on that.
What's really opened your eyes since you've been with Amnesty?
Specific examples would be hard to draw out, to be honest with you, Gareth. But I think that what has stood out for me is the sheer volume of stuff that's going on in the world that you just don't hear about all
Yeah.
day, every day, globally, and how many people it affects directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
We have people that are working with us whose families are in some of these conflict areas who may have been subject to the conflict themselves. So that really was the culture shock for me in joining Amnesty, particularly, is that you tend not to hear about human rights issues in the news generally as Joe Public, unless something
Yeah.
makes the headlines, right? Unless it gets above the gas prices or above, what happened with the football team on any given day.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
all day, every day. And that's why it's so important for an organisation like Amnesty and those like Amnesty to focus on this stuff, because it will go unnoticed otherwise, it will go unchecked.
Yeah.
What really hit me also when I joined Amnesty, having been to places like Afghanistan, as a civvy, I wasn't in the forces, but I saw the forces operate out there, and I saw the lads and ladies coming back, trying to do good, keep peace, trying to, for all the good reasons they were out there, having spent days in the desert, suffering loss, suffering harm, and I spent my fair share hiding in concrete bunkers because the base was under rocket attack, so to speak. So it brings all of those experiences really, really sharply into focus, and it allowed me to relate to what's going on and show some empathy.
How sheltered do you think the British public are in terms of what's going on in the world then?
I'd be doing the British public a disservice if I didn't say that they weren't an intelligent group of people, and I've seen some of that. We haven't worked in Amnesty, but at the end of the day, the media controls a lot, don't they? Let's be honest.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
absolutely.
you probably know yourself. You only hear about what they want you to hear about, and that's just life. The media puts a spin on a certain aspect, a certain thing, and so on and so forth, and that's their job. But I think in terms of sheltered, the internet's a great thing, isn't it? The ability to do our own research these days and to speak to peers and colleagues and friends and engage with complete and utter strangers about what's going on or topics of interest.
Yeah.
So I think a lot, in some way, to answer your question, probably a lot less sheltered than what we would be before the internet came along.
Yeah.
And you see that through the mobilisation of action, through the things that Amnesty does that we gather support for, through organisations like Change.org that are able to gather tens and hundreds of thousands of signatures to things that you may not hear about in the news at all, through the power of social media, through the power of dedicated websites and other platforms.
I think it's important to take a global view on things, isn't it? Because there's a lot of There's a lot going on out there. But so going back to Amnesty then, inevitably I was going to ask you about this, Paul, because it's your core responsibility, I suppose. But tell us about how technology helps Amnesty achieve its goals.
That's a great question. I mean, fundamentally, as I touched on earlier, we're a research and information-driven organisation, right? The way we gather information, the way we assimilate it, the way we draw insight from it, the way we use it, and actually the way we archive that insight as well. Because, and let's not forget, a lot of Amnesty's work isn't just about the atrocity in today's language. It's about being able to tell the story over time. You know, this is a repeatable atrocity in this area against these people for the last 15 years, and here's all the evidence we've gathered over that period. There's a data lineage challenge as well. It's not just about the in the moment. So information is really core, and it cuts through everything that Amnesty does. I mean, it is the core value chain product. It's not like we produce cars or we produce boats or whatever. We produce information and insights and action. So technology has clearly got a huge role to play in that, and so is data governance. And so that's important. But also as a charity, you know, for the mission and to gather support, there needs to be a multiplier. And that, of course, is our marketing, our marcoms, our relationship with supporters. So the typical things you'll see around that, you know, some of the channels that we communicate through, like our websites, like some of the media that we produce, like the journeys that we take people on from being unaware to aware to a supporter or an advocate or a legator, you know, someone that can make a difference long after they're gone, whether that's a financial donation or a change in human rights law. And so the whole marketing, marcoms piece is really important to us too. So there's a particular technology challenge and data challenge around that as a multiplier effect. And then, of course, there's running the business, you know, there's running the organisation, managing its people, managing its finances. So it's some common with a lot of other organisations, but information is really at the fore of Amnesty, which is a fantastic challenge for a CIO.